we can all play defense, but you need to play a little offense as well. And we're definitely playing a little offense with some of the initiatives that we're doing, like the ERP and the configurator.
Hey, it's Ari Santiago, President, CEO of IT Direct. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Made in America podcast, COVID-19 edition. I'm with Gean Tremaine, President of QTran in Southern Connecticut. Really excited to have you on, Gean, and talk about what's going on at QTran. Thanks so much for coming on this afternoon.
Hey, Ari, thank you so much.
Well, listen, it's the Made in America podcast. Same two questions I got to ask you. What do you make and why do you make it?
So we make power supplies and linear lighting for the architectural lighting industry. We go to market through independent lighting reps and get specified on projects all over the country.
And so why do you make it, man? Why lighting? Why lighting in Southern Connecticut? Like, give us the why, man.
I got sucked into it. I'm the fifth generation in lighting, but my dad started the company out of another company that he had, and out of a need for his own project. So he was looking for a better power supply, couldn't find one, decided that he could make something for these projects that he was doing. He was doing a lot of high-end residential work, and fell in love with low voltage lighting, decided that he needed a better transformer, and really developed it out of his own need, which became a company. And he then really closed his design business in his showroom and just started focusing on manufacturing. And manufacturing was something I was interested in, and so I moved from Boston down to really focus on manufacturing power supplies and transformers. I had no interest in the lighting industry, but I really could grasp onto power supplies and transformers. So I got sucked into the lighting industry with I don't know, I guess willingly, but not really knowingly.
Maybe not super enthusiastically to begin with.
Right.
So listen, man, I'm really, we talked before, I'm really excited to kind of have you on a more long form episode, because I think the kind of Q-Trans story, the fifth generation, the twists and turns, clearly when the business started, LED lighting wasn't on the map. But, kind of given where we are right now and kind of looking at kind of COVID, maybe we just start a little bit by talking about, what's the size and scope of QTran? What's the market that you guys sell into? And then we can transition to that, to sort of how you guys are faring in sort of today's changing world. So let's go with kind of the background. How many employees, facilities, and who do you serve?
Yeah, so today we have, I believe, 67 employees in Milford, and then we have 5 out in California. So we have a warehouse in California, about 5,000 square feet in California, and about 50,000 square feet here in Milford, Connecticut. And then we have some temporary employees as well. We do a lot of temp to hire type of stuff. And so we really focus on the architectural lighting industry. And that's not decorative, it's architectural. So it's buildings that are being built, from MDUs to office to hotels type of stuff, museums. And we do both interior and exterior lighting applications. And we still make a lot of the power supplies, and we make the lighting, the linear lighting that would go into cove lighting applications, or under soffits, under like benches, or there's a lot of different applications for linear lighting.
Just that linear, like more so is it more from a design aesthetic point of view, as opposed to like being able to see, like where would, give me an example of like where someone might see the QTrans product in their daily life?
Well, I think architects like to have invisible lighting, so they don't want to see the fixtures, especially in an architectural setting. But so cove lighting would be indirect type of coves. And then you could have like for residential under cabinets, and even like under park benches, or in the wall grazing down. A lot of applications for linear sources versus point sources, which is like a downlight.
Right. So, listen, I've been talking a lot on the Made in America podcast and throughout about what we look at as sort of the four stages or the four phases of sort of COVID, right? Stage one being change, two, abnormalcy, three, recovery, and then look into stage four, thrive. And so just, give me kind of the quick, we feel like we're through stage one, but, we haven't talked. So talk a little bit about what the COVID brought from a change standpoint to QTran. Like, what was the initial impact, to the organization?
I think that we saw a lot of it coming. We do import some product from China, and we have a sourcing team over there. So we were aware that there was something, happening in China, and then it was moving across the globe pretty early on. Not that we were prepared for it, and I think that we were in kind of a denial initially that this was going to be such a pandemic. But we were able to not right the ship, but really come together and figure out a game plan to move forward. And we were not affected too badly. We were able to remain open, and we quickly moved people off-site that could be off-site. The people on the manufacturing floor obviously needed to come into work, but we were able to get our PPEs in place very quickly. Cleaning became, not that we didn't clean, of course we cleaned, but became much more of a, consistent
priority. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, what was the trajectory that QTran was on from a business standpoint? Like, where had you guys been from a growth, perspective, leading up to say March of 2020?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our projections had us probably around 35% year over year, and we were definitely on target. As of the end of April, I think we were about 14% year over year. So we're not too bad, but we're definitely way under where we projected we would be. So that, and of course, we're a little bit behind. We're not a leading indicator. We're probably a lagging indicator, just because the way that construction works, lighting generally is put in last. Mm-hmm. So we do anticipate a bit of a slowdown, but we're also just because of how things were working, we had a lot of new products that we were launching really in the March to May timeline.
Listen, 35% growth is tremendous. Many companies would be extremely happy with 14% growth too. So what do you think has sort of been the secret to, QTran's growth? Well, first of all, has that growth been sort of consistent over the last few years? Have you guys been growing year over year for a while? Has that been a new phenomenon?
Yeah, so since we brought out the linear lighting, which was our first full year was in 2014 to marry with our power supplies, we have been up anywhere between 30 to 50% year over year, with the exception of 2018, and that year we were about 15% up. So we've been up every year. We consider 2018 not a great year for us, but all things considered, it's not terrible.
I wouldn't say so. So, I mean, what do you think were the factors that helped QTran achieve those stellar results over like a 6-year period and how do you see those faring going forward given the pandemic?
Yeah, so we've been in the industry for a long time. People know who we are, and I think that we have, a good brand and, a good track record, really. We have been able to bring on really good people, and the product offering is really top notch. So we just have really good people, really good products, and I think that's
good people and good products. Again, that's usually the underlying pinning of all success, right?
Well, it doesn't hurt. Yeah, it's not that we haven't had missteps, but we feel that we're doing a lot of the right things.
So, I mean, listen, obviously you don't have a crystal ball, or at least you don't have one that I'm aware of. And if you do, let's talk offline about how I can take advantage of it. But assuming that you don't, what do you see the impact to the construction projects that you guys rely on kind of going forward? What do you view that as sort of looking out for the next, say, 6 months of 2020? What do you see? What are you guys forecasting?
I mean, I think that we're going to have a bit of a rough road ahead. There's definitely an impending storm. I don't know when it's going to hit. I think that there's probably going to be a softening in the fall, and that could last, several months, maybe a year. We don't know. I do think that this, if we do have a recession, or we're going to have a recession, apparently, it's going to be caused by a pandemic, not because of some yahoos on Wall Street or some other factor. And so I think that the recovery will be quicker, but we'll see. I'm not a macroeconomist.
I mean, how in touch are you with, I mean, you sell through distribution, right? So does that pose challenges with understanding where your customers really are from a buying perspective? Like when you look at forecasting, right? When you're maybe one step removed from customers, what do you guys do to get the information to really understand where the market's headed so that you can plan?
Right. So we have independent lighting reps all over the country, and they're the ones that are getting our products on projects. And so we are quoting them constantly every day on the project. So, and our CRM is pretty up to date, and we track all of our KPIs pretty closely. So we know when things are up and down just based on those metrics. So far we haven't seen the softening. It's just something that we anticipate happening, and maybe it won't happen. I hope it doesn't happen, but we're prepared for it.
Plan for the worst, hope for the best.
That's right.
Yeah, for sure. So I mean, so you mentioned KPIs, talking about CRM, both the things near and dear to my heart. Do you guys use EOS or follow any kind of rationale like that in terms of managing the business?
We've been threatening to implement EOS for 2 years, and I think that it's actually on my goals this year. And so it's, we haven't been completely sidetracked from COVID, but it's something that probably would have been implemented starting in April or May, and we're pushing it a few more months. The team's on board, so it's something that we definitely want to execute sooner than later. But one of our initiatives is revamping our entire ERP, and we're adding a configurator to our ERP, which really means that we're re-engineering our full ERP. And our CRM is actually tied into our ERP. I would not wish our ERP on anybody, but it is what we have right now, and we're making it work.
So it's a really interesting topic talking about these initiatives, because one of the things we've been talking to a lot of manufacturers in Connecticut about who've been able to take advantage of PPP, which gives us like a little bit of like extra breathing room to not only keep people employed, but maybe look at ways to improve the business at a time where there's some demand slack. Sounds like you guys haven't had the demand slack. The orders are all still there. Are you finding time to do some extra projects right now? And if so, what are those?
We are, and so thank you for bringing that up. And it has afforded us some time to really focus on the business. And so the ERP is the main thing. The configurator has taken a lot of mind share from most of our key employees. So that has been really fast-tracked in many ways, and we've been able to focus on it. So we have 2-hour meetings every day for the configurator, which is painful but necessary. And a lot of it's done remotely, so we're doing it over Zoom or team meetings every day, and that's helped move things along quite nicely. And nobody's killed each other, so that's good.
That's very, very positive. So where did the idea for the configurator come from, and how do you assess like the ROI on that project? Because listen, I mean, I'm sure you're spending some money to build it, plus 2-hour meetings every day. That costs money. How did you guys decide to do the project, and how are you looking at ROI?
So linear lighting, one of the advantages that we have in the marketplace is that we offer our product to be cut in many increments down to the inch. And so our standard fixtures are offered in 8-foot lengths, but they're available in every inch. So that's 96 iterations right there. And then we have the light engine that goes inside of the extrusions come in a variety of outputs. So the wattages vary from 1.5 watts up to 9 watts, and we have, just to make it simple, because we've added some products, but before we added those products, we had 7 wattages, 7 color temperatures, and 3 ratings from a wet listing. So we had dry, damp, and wet. And so that's about 150 iterations right there. And then you compound that on top of the 96 cut lengths times what do we have? 14 fixtures right now and 4 lenses. So there's not enough room in the database to be able to have millions. I think we had 20-something million bombs that we would have to have in the ERP database, and so it just wasn't
practical.
Realistic. Yeah. And so having the configurator is really a necessity. We realized that we not only needed an inward-facing configurator, but we also needed an outward-facing configurator, and that was a bit of a trick. And so that has come to fruition, and we're testing it and all of that. But having it both inward and outward-facing was really the goal, and I think we're getting there. So.
And talk about the ROI review. So clearly, there's a lot of different configurations, right? So when you look to take on this project, not inexpensive, not very time consuming, so expensive and time consuming. How did you guys look at ROI? I mean, relatively small business, right? How did you look at ROI there?
I think that they're really well. So we've had to add applications engineers to build bombs, all day long. That's the alternative. But that really didn't get us to where we wanted to. Having the bombs or the configurator available on the outward facing wasn't, we couldn't get there with internal people. So some of it really is not measurable, I guess. But the cost of it, it's a good question. I guess I'm dancing around the answer. I don't know if I have an ansanswer. We don't have a
feel. Yeah.
It's more of a gut feel. We know the cost. We know what our expense would have been without it, and we feel that the ease to market and the customer experience will pay for itself.
And is this something that an end customer would use, or that one of the independent reps would use?
Both. So we would have, it available to the reps, would have, obviously pricing information, but even the specifier could build configure a part and not have the pricing visibility.
Well, so that's that kind of helps with the customer service, get more communication out to the end user, as well as to the rep. So kind of deepen some relationships there too.
And accuracy of part numbers, which is also
That's super helpful, right? Yeah. Quality on time is going to help quite a bit. So, I mean, that's a great kind of tool to look at communicating with like the sales force and with your customers. What are some of the things you guys are doing from a communication standpoint? Maybe not because of COVID, maybe because of COVID, looking at some ways to maybe get out in the marketplace and find some opportunities to start looking towards like that recovery stage. What are you guys doing to get to recovery, to position yourselves to get through this successfully?
Yeah, I mean, over the years, we had really started to invest a lot in trade shows, and it's just kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't type of a thing. So we were spending a ton of money on trade shows, and one of the big ones, which actually just started becoming a big one, was in New York City, and it happened to fall on March 17th, which was St. Patrick's Day, and it was still going to happen up until about the 11th hour, and then they canceled it. But that was really going to be an unveiling for some pretty key products that we were bringing to market, and we had no way to communicate these products that we've been developing over the past 9 months or whatever. And so we realized that we had an opportunity here to be able to communicate with technology, and we started with our first webinar, which was an online type of trade show, and then realized that we could take that and do kind of a weekly spotlight on a product. So that's one of the things that we've done, and we've been pretty regular about having a spotlight every week. Every Tuesday, we do 2 webinars, and so that's been an effective way of being able to communicate to the marketplace, because a lot of the design firms are closed, and the designers are at home as well. I think they're getting inundated with Zoom meetings and online webinars, and having the consistency and the cadence has helped us because people kind of know when to tune in, right? And so that's one of the things that we've done to help continue the message, I guess.
That's pretty great. I mean, listen, you got to find new and different ways to do stuff. Can't go see them live, bring it to them. Are you guys seeing traction on that? Do you sort of track engagement? Do you get it in front of people?
We do, and we have seen a very consistent, audience. I think that we want to try to up the ante a little bit and grow it. So that's our next goal.
Reinvest in that. I love it. What else do you have any other kind of initiatives or changes that you've seen that you're kind of doing in this new stage to kind of put yourself in a position to recover successfully as we recover?
Well, we've invested more in product development, so we're digging down deep. Everybody's working hard, which is great, and I couldn't be happier with the team's effort. I think everybody's fear is that, when this started, it was that people were going to go home and nothing was going to work. And I think, and you've heard from others that people are really working hard and digging deep. And I think that a lot of good's going to come out of this whole thing. It's unfortunate that we had to all experience it, but I think that there's going to be some great products, innovations, and developments from this.
Some silver linings on this otherwise gray cloud.
Absolutely.
How are you keeping in touch with the team? Like manufacturers have some interesting challenges, right? You've got some people that have to come on prem, right? You've got other people that are home. So what do you do did you have team meetings before? Are you still having team meetings differently? Like, kind of talk about your internal communication to sort of keep the team engaged and rowing in the same direction.
Yeah. So we've had weekly meetings and daily meetings prior and currently. I come to the office every day, so I walk the floor. I'm here with a bunch of people that are here every day in the office. I think that we have at least one representative from each department here every day, and then of course, through the Zooms and team meetings and Skype, we're meeting as well. So it is interesting because we have kind of a management meeting every week, and it's generally 5 or 6 of us in the conference room, and there's a few remote, and now it's flipped, and so it's usually now just me in the conference room, and everybody else is remote. But it's it's still as effective as it was prior, and in some ways maybe more effective. And we're trying to make sure that we're not having too many meetings.
Have you changed or adjusted any KPIs to sort of measure success differently, ways that you think are maybe better now than you were measuring them before?
Ooh, that is, we readjusted our forecast, but I don't think that's the KPIs you're talking
about.
That's all right. No, we haven't, and that's a good question. I have not done that.
That's all right. I mean, let's just try and find out what different people are doing to try and make it work. What are you finding in terms of any challenges related to people that are at home that are maybe have other commitment? I don't want to say commitments isn't the right word, but listen, schools are closed, daycares are closed, camps up in the air. Are you having how are you guys faring with sort of any of those challenges? People that are home but have other competing demands. Has that been a challenge? And if it has been, what have you guys done to sort of combat that?
Flexibility. We know that there's some people that have, especially younger kids, I think are probably the more challenging right now, until probably the summer hits and the older kids have nothing to do. But we're being flexible and having people be able to work when they can work, when the kids are asleep or whatever. And that has really been the secret, and understanding, flexibility and understanding. So, a couple people are coming to mind right now, and how we're dealing with that is, sometimes, when they say they cannot meet during this time, there's a reason, right? And we just all need to understand that.
Yeah, I'm working around that. That's pretty great. Were you guys having challenges with staffing, finding quality or qualified people kind of leading up to this pandemic? I mean, it's a big problem across the manufacturing landscape. Was that a challenge that you guys were finding that you had? And has that changed at all in the last couple months?
Yes, it was a huge problem, and we have not seen the quality of candidates that we were hoping would come across our bow yet.
Do you think that might change when
I,
PPP runs out?
I do. I honestly do. So we're hoping that by the summertime, maybe late summer, we'll find the right people for the right seats.
Yeah, maybe take advantage of some talent that's out in the marketplace a little bit later on in the pandemic.
And we're looking. I mean, we're looking for some people right now, but we have not found the right people yet.
How do you guys typically try and find folks? You had mentioned temp to hire, so you're probably using temp agencies. What other avenues have you guys used in the past to find talent, and have you changed that at all?
We don't necessarily have a fully fledged HR department. We do use Culture Index. So Mark Boland, I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Familiar with it.
Yep. And so we kind of know who we're looking for.
Do you want to tell the audience what Culture Index is actually? Because not everyone listening might know what it is.
It's an assessment tool that allows you to kind of really set your parameters on who you're looking for, and it gives you an assessment of what your strengths are and who you are as an individual, and temperament and things like that. And kind of before you get those surveys from the candidates, you've already kind of qualified who you're looking for. So you know who you're looking for, and the candidates will fill out the assessment or the survey, and you can gauge who might be a good fit before you even start the interview process. And we start
with that concept of like, right, we want to hire people for fit and culture. We hear that all the time. Well, how do we measure that, right? It's hard to kind of speed date someone right through an interview process and then try and get married. And so this culture index, right, can help determine if they would fit into the culture at QTran.
Correct. Yep. And so we're able to really get filter down to 3 qualified candidates before we even get to the interview process. So far, the interview process has been virtual, and then we've gotten a couple people here for in-person interviews, but nobody that we've hired yet.
No hires yet. Right? Well, listen, you know what I mean? What do they say? Got to kiss a lot of frogs, right?
That's right.
So let me ask you another question about, peer learning. Like, are you engaged in any sort of like peer learning industry groups, business leader groups, and like, how have you been leveraging that during the pandemic?
Yeah, so I'm part of a Vistage group, and we have been meeting every week at every Thursday. I think we're meeting. Not I think we are. So we do like a half-hour check-in, going over some of the concerns or issues, or how do you address whatever the issue might be. A lot of the early on discussions were around PPP and all of that, because it seemed to change on a daily basis.
Hourly sometimes.
And so helpful. And my business group is great, and I've been a member since 2016. I rely on
What
them.
kind of impact do you think peer learning, for people that don't know, right? Vistage, similar to like Entrepreneurs Organization or YPO, is sort of a group, usually, right, 7 to 10, business owners, and Vistage is moderated. You guys meet on a regular, I think it's a monthly basis, right?
Yep.
And kind of go over business issues and kind of help share experiences and learn from non-competitive businesses. So how has sort of this peer learning experience impacted you as a leader in the last 4 years?
I think it's just been wonderful to be able to hear other people's perspectives about what they're going through or what I'm going through, and hear what their advice might be. Working through issues, so being able to bring an issue to the team and have everybody help me work through an issue, or be part of helping somebody else work through an issue has been just unbelievably valuable. And then getting speakers there, which happens as well sometimes, is great. It's just it's a great way to be able to grow your business, think outside the box, get out of yourself, really be able to hear how another business that might not be in any way affiliated with your business addresses an issue or handles a situation. I couldn't speak highly enough about it. I think anybody that's in my seat or your seat should be part of one of those organizations, and I'm assuming that you find a ton of value in yours as well.
Yeah, dude, it's one of the reasons why one of the goals of Made in America has been to kind of foster peer learning. It's why I ask so many questions, to try and get like a broader sort of experience share out there, because I think, as I'm fond of saying, a rising tide lifts all boats. And, there's all these different sayings, right? Steel sharpens steel, or whatever. That there's just so much can be learned from people with different business leadership experiences. And everyone always says, I want to spend more time working on my business rather than in my business. And it's hard to find a way to do that, but these peer groups, provide that opportunity. I think you articulated it super well. And it's hard, similar to the conversation we had related to your, the customer portal. It's not always obvious. Like, you can't always draw a direct ROI line from A to B, but that creating an environment where customers can get more information, where you can simplify configuration and do all that, is going to drive value, right? Like, that's going to happen. It's hard to draw the direct line, but you'll look back in some years and go, wow, that made a huge difference in the business. Similar to like an ERP investment. I think, peer learning, even so much more. Look back at my decade plus experience, it's impossible to envision how I would have got here without that. But drawing that line is hard to do. So, listen, as we're kind of going to wrap up a little bit here, Gean, I'm just, looking as you look forward and think about how can you put QTran in the best position to get back and thrive. What do you see as some of the key 2 or 3 things that a manufacturing leader in Connecticut needs to be paying attention to make sure that they get through this successfully? Or what are the top 2 or 3 things you think about, to kind of make sure you get QTran through this successfully?
Yeah, I mean, I think that just doing making sure that we're spending dollars in the best place, getting the most bang for our buck, is definitely kind of at the top of my mind. We can all play defense, but you need to play a little offense as well. And we're definitely playing a little offense with some of the initiatives that we're doing, like the ERP and the configurator. But I think that just keeping your eye on the ball and being able to communicate with your team, communicate with your staff, and do the best that we can. I mean, some of this is uncharted, and we just don't know where this is all headed. But we're doing the right things. I know we're doing the right things. And you can only have you have to have a little faith, I guess, that things will work out.
Yeah. Isn't that part of being an entrepreneur?
Yeah.
So it's 1 part faith, 2 parts hard work, and hopefully that gets you there. That's great, man. I love that. I think making sure you're spending your dollars efficiently, but not forgetting to play offense, is such a critical thing to remember. Like, no one ever wins playing full on defense, right? We've got to take advantage of the opportunities. It's awesome to see you guys doing that and kind of leaning into it to find those opportunities. So, Gean, I super appreciate you coming on and sharing a little bit about the COVID experience, from the QTran perspective and your perspective. And I look forward to having you up in Hartford and doing a full-on episode, because I think the audience would be super thrilled to hear kind of the background of QTran and what you guys have been able to achieve. It's pretty impressive.
Thanks, Ari. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by IT Direct.
As always, thanks so much for tuning in. I definitely want your feedback and hope you subscribe. But what I want the most is to build a community where we learn and grow with each other. I hope you're getting a lot of value out of the time we're spending together. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next time.